Gaming NBS episode 191 coming to you Wednesday, May 16th, 2018. Welcome to Gaming NBS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. Good to have you here. How you doing, Sean?
Oh, man, I think I got a toothache.
You do? That sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. I woke up this morning and it's just been really aggravating me, and I think it's getting worse, which is really awesome.
You know what you need? This means your whiskey count is low.
Oh, jeez. It might go up exponentially if this thing
if you
gets
don't take
worse.
care of the toothache, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, before we go too far from I want to make sure we take time to do this. Today is Mother's Day. We're recording this on May 13th. So, yes. There are a lot of gaming moms out there, and even if you're not a gaming mom, if your mom helped you in any way, my mom, I've talked about this in the show, was wonderful. She's the one the reason I game is because my mother. She got me to read The Hobbit and all that stuff because she loved Tolkien, and she was one of my first Middle-earth role-playing RPGers. One of the first people I ever DM'd for. So it's awesome that our moms have supported us all this time. So if you haven't called your mom and said, Happy Mother's Day, do that. Send her a card. Do something, damn it. Come on. It's Mom. Be nice. Anyway. Sean, speaking of moms, how's yours doing?
Oh, much better, thank you.
Good.
Yes, she's at home treating her appendicitis with antibiotics. So
Very good.
yeah, very
Very,
good.
very
I had brunch with Mom today.
Oh, good. Good for you.
I think she won some money at the casino.
Nice.
Yeah. That was before she told me that she was probably going to leave this world broke and that my sister and I wouldn't get any money from her. So I'm like, hey, look, Mom, save that up. Save that up for us.
I distinctly remember my grandmother, my dad's mom, talking about this big trip to Australia she was going to do with a bunch of ladies she'd been friends with forever, long before my grandmother's dead now. And my dad said, I don't know, Ma, sounds like a lot of money. He goes, yeah, Ron, I know. He goes, yeah, because what are you going to leave me? And she looked at me, he goes, Mom, it's your money, spend it. I don't need it, that's fine, go. No one in my family is rich. So like, look, it's yours, spend it, do it as you got to do. You don't have to leave me anything, I'm cool.
Yeah, so thanks to moms everywhere, because without ours, we wouldn't be here today.
Hell yeah.
So there we go.
All right, announcements-wise, GameholeCon, GameholeCon.com, November, submissions for events is open. If you're planning to run, what the hell are you doing? Get it out there. Make it happen. Do it. Run some games.
Guilty.
I know. I'm just going to keep saying this. You can tell Sean has put his games in because Brett will stop mentioning this at the top of every show.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list.
But anyway, if you are so inclined to do so, we would love it if you ran it under the Gaming NBS banner. That would be most awesome if you could do that for us. That'd be great. And hope to see you at GameholeCon. And speaking of really cool things, friends of the show, Eloy Lasanta has his latest Kickstarter is live, Part-Time Gods of Fate 2nd Edition. We had poked at that earlier. Sean and I had a chance, Eloy being a scholar and a gentleman, had sent us a quick start for the Part-Time Gods of Fate 2nd Ed, and it looks pretty goddamn cool. So we're hoping we can actually get Eloy on the show to talk about just gods in general in gaming and so forth. Not looking to have it be a Kickstarter pimpy thing, but we would really like to get Eloy on the show and just kind of chew the fat with the man and see what he's got to say about gods and gaming.
Todd Crapper thought that would be a good idea.
Yes, thank you, Sean. Yeah, credit where credit is due. Todd, another scholar and a gentleman, Mr. Crapper, said, hey, Eloy, gods, hello, in gaming. There we are. You've asked Todd, and we have asked. We will ask Eloy and see what we can do. Schedules being schedules, we'll do our damnedest to get him on here. Any other announcements, man?
No.
All right, let's random encounter it up.
All right.
You want to start?
Sure.
Go for it.
Emailed suggestion from Matt Seiberlich.
I had you do this one because I can never pronounce Matt's name correctly, and I always look like an idiot.
Fair enough. First, great job with the podcast. I've listened to quite a few and keep coming back to yours, which says quite a lot in my opinion. Show idea. Since Sean usually runs published adventures, I'd be interested to hear him take one that is pretty popular, say Lost Mines of Phandelver, and discuss how he tweaked it for his own game. The process of how and why he might have altered plot, monsters, NPCs, and other elements would be super cool insight. Thanks, and keep up the quality cast.
That's actually a pretty damn good idea, Matt. What do you think, Sean? Would you be up for such a thing?
I would be up for it. My only caveat to that is sometimes the tweaks and changes that I impose is typically in a reaction mode from the player characters. So it may be a little tricky for me to sit down and say, well, this could go this way or this could go that way and make it that kind of approach where it would be more in the moment.
True, but after that first moment occurs, an adjustment has been made, and then you begin preparation for sessions 2, 3, and 4. After that fact, you have that adjustment you've made, and what has that done to the rest of your approach to the entire dungeon?
Well, it totally screws up everything for me, and I usually shit-can the campaign after that. So
That's true.
No,
That's very true.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good idea, though. That's good stuff, Matt.
And taking an adventure like Lost Mines of Phandelver, it's out there. It's been out for quite some time. I think we could do that fairly spoiler-free. And I have taken a couple published adventures myself and beat the living hell out of them, so that could be interesting. But Sean does it more than I do, so all right, that goes in the hopper. We shall see what we do.
Thanks for the suggestion, Matt.
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. Crim fan commented, says, "Hey guys, it's been a while. Work has been kicking my butt, so I just picked a show that was interesting. Apropos your topic for episode 185, while it's not specifically laid out, 5e has a useful mechanism to represent a group searching and other group tasks where multiple characters are trying to combine their efforts. That mechanism is Advantage. So here's how I've been doing it. If a group of characters is making a check, declare one character the leader and represent any help by giving advantage on the leader. In general, the leader should be a PC, not an NPC, particularly in social situations. B, any buffs or debuffs applied to the leader. And C, I tend to limit helping by requiring proficiency, although it depends on the situation. As we all know in real life, noobs tend to, quote-unquote, help, not help so much. So I may well throw disadvantage for a particularly useless helper. D, recall that advantage does not stack and one advantage can eliminate disadvantage. So if you happen to have a particularly challenging task of some sort, it has disadvantage per se, you may be able to get enough bodies on a problem, have it solved, or even get advantage. However, sheer bodies can't solve every problem. In this system, static modifiers really bite, whereas disadvantage can be overcome with numbers. E, a bit of organization helps too. In Adventures in Middle-earth, the 5e adaptation of the One Ring, their party roles such as Lookout, Scout, Hunter, and Guide. The Lookout is ordinarily the character making perception checks unless it's clear they can't or it doesn't apply. That way you prevent the pack mentality of, oh, I can roll too. No, you're not on Lookout, is the answer. F, another way to adapt the 4e skill challenge by requiring 5e successes before 2 failures or whatever. If too many people are piling on but aren't any good at the task, they may well accumulate those failures rather quickly. In other games, you can adapt similar mechanisms, but the main thing is that there should be some kind of diminishing returns for piling on. You guys mentioned this in the teamwork rules, but I figure it's worth writing it out because it's a very good way to keep things from getting out of hand. As to group perception checks, lots of times it's totally fine that everybody rolls, such as a surprise check. Crimfan, the one thing that jumps out at me, I should say not the only thing I like, is the idea is that if too many people pile on, accumulate those failures quickly, right? There should be diminishing returns for the number of people you pile on, right? You can only fit 5 characters in the hole to dig out the rocks. Putting 20 in the hole, it just gets in the way. So I get that. That's a good piece. And as always, Crimfan has a nicely laid out response to anything that we've done. So thank you very much. Sean, you got anything on that one?
No, thanks, Crimfan. Some good stuff.
Very cool. I think we should go on to the main topic.
Right. Brett and I have a guest on the show today. I want to introduce Jeff Martin. Jeff is the person behind the infamous True Dungeon. And if you've been living under a rock for the last few years, True Dungeon is quite the experience. We're going to talk to Jeff a little bit about that in the next few minutes. Jeff, welcome to the Gaming NBS.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good to have you, man. So I'll tell you what, Jeff. We'll start off with this one. What if when someone comes up to you and they're like, what the hell is True Dungeon anyway? What's your pitch for when someone wants to know what it's all about? Do you just say, oh, it's like an escape room D&D themed, or how do you describe it to the idiot like myself who's not going through it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's actually changed over our 16-year history. We came along well before escape room. So before that, I kind of describe it as it's like an interactive sword and sorcery type adventure, and you get to solve puzzles, fight some monsters, meet some NPCs, have some fun. But now that the escape room thing's kind of taken off, it's a little easier for people to wrap their heads around. We say it's kind of like an escape room, except you move to multiple rooms and you get to fight some things with our simulated combat, and there's some other physical challenges that you get to face, all while trying to be immersed in this like 2-hour story in a really cool medieval fantasy setting.
That is cool. Now, is this? I have LARPed in the past, and I know friends of the show and people that Sean and I have met are LARPers, either like Vampire Star LARPs or even the foam weapons and stuff. Is this one of those type of events where it's LARP based, or people in street clothes and just kind of dive into it?
Sure. Yeah, it's another good question. Yeah, it's a little strange. We have people that dress up and they try to play a character and have fun, but it's not really set into the game to do that. The reason I called it True Dungeon was because I wanted it to feel like it was you in the environment, right? So we have it all set up where instead of you getting a character that you have to spend mental energy to maintain, you just spend all your focus on trying to live, trying to survive. And so if there's a trap on the wall, you have to find it like with your own, searching, whatever you can do, you do. There's no rolling, there's no characters that have like a certain thing. It's just you against the dungeon. So that's why we call it True Dungeon. But I mean, we have people that dress up and have fun and do all that, but for me, I just wanted something a little different and something that I thought the most immersion that I could provide is where I don't ask people to play a character. Or it's just you and what you can do against the dungeon.
That's cool. So if there's potentially a trap on the wall, it behooves, if Sean and I are in there with our group, it behooves us to do, okay, you check that wall, I'll check this one, physically putting your hands on the wall, looking for whatever the problem may or may not be. So you're lifting, you're moving, you're poking, you're prodding. Okay.
Yeah. Like you might be going down like a hallway and you notice this big like scorch mark on one side of the hallway. And you might go, oh, I wonder where that came from. And then you look over the opposite side and you'll see this little hole sticking out of the door or the wall. And so you want to kind of avoid that area because it obviously had been tripped in the past, that kind of thing.
So, Jeff, you mentioned you've had this around for 16 years. Is that right?
Yes, this is our 16th year. Yep.
Wow. So how did it come to be? What would you wake up one day and figured you'd put together this behemoth of a exhibit?
Yeah, I just kind of got out of hand. No, what had happened is I've lived in a college town in Carbondale, Illinois, since the 80s, and had all these great friends, gamers, that would come to town, stay for 4 years, sometimes 5 or 6, because they were gamers. But eventually they would graduate, and then they would leave, so that kind of sucked. So I started having this thing the first one was called Giant City Con, which is a state park near here, and so I'd get all these people that had moved away to come back, and it was on Halloween weekend, and we rented a cabin and just gamed all weekend long. It was awesome. And to make it special, I wanted to do like a really cool D&D like team tournament. So I divided it was like 12 people. We divided them up into like 3 groups of 4. And to make it really cool, I decided I wanted to do like props. So I made I got like a rabbit skin and like drew some cryptic clues on it. I had a trap chest I made, that kind of thing. And that was like 1996, I think. And then over the years, it got more and more involved, where I made more and more elaborate props and puzzles and that kind of thing. eventually we moved to a hotel that had I rented out a suite and actually physically with wood and studs and all that, and I created like the final room with a secret door and all this really cool stuff. So that was the span over 5 or 6 years. On that 1 year that I made that really cool room, Stefan Picorni from Dwarven Forge fame, who I'd worked for, at his booth for a while, decided to come to Jeff Con. He had a great time and was blown away by the rooms and the props and the puzzles. So about 3 months later, he was sitting having a beer with Peter Atkinson, who owned Gen Con, and he was talking about how they were moving to Indy, and he had all this room, and he wanted to make some big event, and he wanted to make like a maze or something that would be really cool that people could go through. And that's when Stefan said, I know this crazy dude named Jeff who like makes rooms and props and sets and stuff. Talk to him. So I talked to Peter on the phone for a while. He seemed interested. I don't think he was quite sure if I was crazy enough to do it. So I decided to send him an explosive scroll tube. That's
awesome.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. This was like 5 months after 9/11. But anyway, I made this really cool old scroll tube, and I invited him to the next Jeff Con. And I put these like they're called Chinese firecrackers, where they've got like 2 pull strings on them, and when you pull them apart, so I trapped this scroll tube. So no matter which way you opened it, it was gonna fire off. And inside was a invitation, but I warned some of the people in the staff that this might happen, so just so they weren't freaking out. But anyway, he loved it. He thought it was funny as hell, and he came. He came to Jeff Con, flew out in the middle of nowhere, Marion, Illinois. Took a one-hopper to Jeff Con 2003, and he went through my little adventure again. Again, the final room I built in a suite, and we went and had pancakes the next day at Bob Evans next door, and that's where True Dungeon was born. He basically said, here's $5,000, spend it all, make me a cool event, and have fun. And that was it. So it was in March, and Gen Con was in August. So I had not that long. So I just basically designed it so it was what I would want to play. And luckily, 4 months later, people loved it, and it's been growing ever since.
So which Gen Con was that you premiered at, Jeff?
It was the first one at Indianapolis, 2003. Yeah, we're in the Hyatt, little 8,000 square foot ballroom. And now we're in a roughly 50,000 square foot in Lucas Oil Stadium.
Wow.
That's a bit of growth.
Went from $5,000 and a bunch of plywood and some really cool ideas to, I've heard tales of animatronic dragons and all sorts of craziness. So, holy cow. Congrats, man. That is awesome. That is very cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun, too.
So how do you take 50,000, something that fits in a 50,000 square foot area? What does that consist of? 5 semi-trucks? What is that?
You are amazing. 5 semi-trucks is what we took last year to Gen Con. They were completely full.
You was totally guessing, weren't you, Sean? You were totally guessing.
Totally guessing.
You guessed. And these were full, extra wide, 53-foot trailers, as big as we could fit. And, we filled up all 5 of them.
How many, what do you have from like a staff perspective? I'm sure you've got like volunteers, people who are more than happy to, spread the word, take tickets, do that stuff. But how many people actually within it are doing stuff? Actors, people doing bit parts or whatever. How many people does it take to pull the sucker off?
How many got involved, Jeff?
Yeah, well, it depends on the con. Our biggest one, of course, is Gen Con. We've been doing it a while. We just sold over 8,000 tickets for it in less than 24 hours when they came available a couple of weeks ago on the Gen Con site. That was really cool to see. I guess it means we're doing something right. But to put something on the size of Gen Con, we run from like 8:30 in the morning, and the last people leave about 1:30 in the morning. So we run almost 19, 20 hours a day for 3 days. It's insane. So we have 2 shifts. To build it, it takes 3 days. We get there Monday morning. We build Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We have 40 to 50 people that are, all they do is come in those 3 days and build the event. Then we have another about 220 people come in and run the event.
Wow.
And they run that for 3 days. And then we have a bunch of people come in on Sunday morning. Basically everybody, it's all hands. And we tear it all down really quick on Sunday because we have to load it in the trucks Monday morning.
Wow. I run a small gaming convention up in my hometown, about 1,500 people, and up in Wausau, Wisconsin. And that is crazy enough for me. Wow, the coordination skills you and your team must have to be able to pull that off. That is amazing. That is awesome.
Well, luckily we've grown slowly over the 16 years, so we've kind of we've made all the mistakes. Believe me, probably more than once. But we have like recently we just launched a website, tdvols.com, where people can go and apply and get all the information they need. And it used to be done with like Wufoo forms and all kinds of stuff. But this is really nice now. Like before their schedule, they're going to get a text. If they're scheduled to start at noon, at 11 a.m., they're going to get a text on their phone saying, "Hey, your shift starts in about an hour. Be ready. Here's what you need to know." That kind of thing. So yeah, we're getting there. We're getting more and more organized, and got some great people that help put it all on.
Wow. So one of the things that's really interesting, at least, so part that shit's really cool. That is amazing how you pull it off. So when I walk in, and maybe this is easier in theory to do than it is in practice, but when you start off and you come into that first room, the first antechamber hallway, it's pretty much, you're turned loose. I mean, how do you get people when they walk in that front door and they know what they're supposed to do, right? Do you guys have, hey, are you new here? Do you have an intro for them? Or, hey, your old hands, just jump in? What's the preamble like? You know what I'm saying?
Well, over the years, we've developed this pretty cool way to do it. We have what's called coaching rooms. And so there's 10 people in a group, and we've got these little rooms that have like a U-shaped type of setup with 10 chairs. And then the coach hangs out in the middle of that U, and they basically spend 24 minutes with them to answer all their questions, get their characters ready. We have, help them figure out what tokens they want to equip with and that kind of thing. If it's a bunch of veterans, usually they just hang out and to chat with the coach, and it's not a big thing. But if it's a complete group of newbies who never played before, the coach will use the full 24 minutes to do as much as he can to get the group ready, answer their questions, and send them into the next room, which is the training room. And in there they spend 12 minutes, and that's where they practice their class skill. So if you're like a rogue, you've got this like operation type skill you have to do, where you have to guide this metal stylus through a maze on the top of a treasure chest. And if you get it through, then you can open the chest. Inside is a token, free treasure that you can take for yourself, or you can look at the clue, which could help the whole party out. So it's the rogue's choice. Do they want to screw the party, or do they want to take the clue? So that's
classic rogue dilemma.
Yep, classic. And then there's like fighter types that practice our combat system, which sounds kind of lame, but it's what's the term? Kind of air hockey type thing, shuffleboard.
Yeah, I've heard it described. Yeah, the shuffleboard thing. So when we're talking about tokens, for a second, so these tokens are about the size of like a US 50-cent piece, if I recall last time I saw one. They were kind of a heavy plastic. And apart from, so that's how you have gear, am I correct? Like weapons and specialized equipment and so forth. That's the markers you carry with you?
Yeah, it all started with, like, the first year we didn't have, the first True Dungeon, we didn't have any kind of tokens. But we wanted to, we just didn't have time because, I mean, the classic thing with D&D, right, is you get treasure. You got to have treasure. It's not a cool D&D simulation unless you can get some treasure and equip your character, that kind of thing. So the second year, we came up with these tokens that represent the gear that you can find, or like we had them in the dungeon. There's like, you know, any kind of gear you can have in D&D, you can find pretty much on a token. They're full color, really high resolution, heavy gold chips. One side is our logo, but the other side is this really nice illustration in full color. And they're really durable. You can, believe me, I've tried to I've tried to reuse them, and it's almost impossible to get the thing off and do it well, but in any kind of fast way. But the big thing with the tokens is most of them just last forever. We still have people, because it's like a real item, right? So if you've got a sword from 10 years ago, you can still use it. Some people do. If it's a consumable like a scroll or a potion, or, you know, like some kind of healing thing, then you actually have to turn it in to use it. And we have these like treasure buckets in every room. So if you want to drink a potion of healing, you actually give it to the DM and you heal yourself.
Nice. I have seen the eBay listings. I have seen folks online selling the tokens. So I know there's an aftermarket for it where people have stuff. And so like, talking about the combat for a second. So when we say shuffleboard, what does that look like? Am I trying to knock down a pin? Am I trying to skate the puck, if you will, onto a hit location or something? How's that function? Sure.
It's the table is 3 foot wide, 8 foot long. And on it, we have like a kind of a black and white image of the outline of a monster. And there's different areas that are designated with different numbers. So like the closer you get to the like vital areas of the monster, the higher the numbers go usually. So like if you want to score like a 20, usually it's somewhere like near the head or something. So the object of the game, the object of the thing, of course, is just to get your token to land, your slider to land on a number that your character would hit with the AC of the whatever the monster is. What's cool about the system is, and I didn't really realize it till we started playing around with it, is there's a lot of tactics in team play, because you may slide pretty badly, but you may be, you know, like the barbarian, and if you do hit, you do really a lot of damage. So maybe the next guy up, who's maybe the rogue, a newbie rogue that doesn't really have much of a weapon, could actually bump your token or your slider. There's these little plastic things that the tokens go in. And that could actually bump you into like a 20, so you would crit. So it kind of simulates, if you can imagine 10 people fighting one single monster, you might take a jab at the monster, which causes the monster to jump back from your sword and right into the, you know, the axe of the barbarian kind of thing. So it's kind of a cool simulation of how that would all work. And there's some interesting strategies that people use to make it a lot of fun.
Do the critters fight back, I assume? Have you got? Do we have a pile of dead player characters at the end of every session?
Yeah, they do. They get tougher as you get farther in the dungeon, of course. On that, we just use a classic D20. That way there's no, you know, the DM isn't involved with his skill. It's just and it's faster just to have he rolls a couple attacks, and it gets resolved pretty fast that way.
Okay. So when people encounter a monster, is that a person? Is it, like I said, I heard tales of the animatronic dragon. Is it actually a prop like that? Is it a person in costume? How is that represented?
Sure. It really depends on the situation. You might run into an animatronic dragon that's, you know, flies up in the air and breathes fog on you. It's pretty cool. Or you might run into Felurian, who's just this NPC sitting on a throne in a wooded area. Or it could be somebody in it's like behind a wall of iron bars, and they're a wizard throwing spells at you through the iron bars, so your fighters can't like melee with them and everything has to be like missile, or they have to try to bend the bars to get at them, that kind of thing. So it really just depends on the situation. Try to always vary it up, and we try to make it as fun as we can.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So how many different do you follow the current standard for like classes and races and stuff right out of Wizards D&D, or is it kind of a homebrew in that perspective? I mean, we mentioned rogues and wizards and barbarians, kind of your classics, but do you go all in like tieflings, dragonborn, that type of stuff, or how are you sitting there?
We're kind of just a hybrid thing. Like I said, we started 16 years ago, and at the time it was 3rd edition, right? And we kind of went a little bit of 3rd edition, but I was kind of an old timer. We still called it backstabbing instead of sneak attack.
Yep. Yeah.
At the time,
I still have a hard time with rogue. I keep wanting to say thief. Every time I see the thief, I'm like, it's a damn thief, people.
Yeah, I hear you. I think the first Gen Con I misspelled rogue, and it was rouge on the card. It was really embarrassing. I didn't know what the heck a rogue was anyway. But anyway, yeah, mostly it's closest to 3rd edition probably.
Okay, all right. Let's see. So very hands-on, escape room style. And for those who don't know, escape rooms are basically, it's very hands-on where you pick up, you move, and you adjust things. So my assumption, Jeff, is if I see a painting on the wall, I'm free to walk up and say, hey, I want to search behind it. I don't look at a game master and say, can I search behind it? I just go up and move the painting if it's possible. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, most of the time. There may be some situations where the DM might say, hey, a lot of this stuff is, he might, 1 out of 10 times the DM might say, be a little careful with some of the stuff if we've got some fragile props that are in there. But most of the time you're free to just see what you can find. Because it's so rushed, and we really want that really excitement. So you only get 12 minutes in a room. Most of the time we try to make it fairly obvious at the beginning what you need to do, just to make it more fun. So there's not a lot of searching that you need to do all the time, but occasionally we had a puzzle last year, one of the Pat Rothfuss dungeons, where there are all these parchments hanging around in this room, and the party had to split up and read them and try to find clues. That was the part of the puzzle challenge there.
Okay. Very cool. So obviously you don't want like Sean and I and their clawhammer spending hours trying to tear through the studs to see what's hidden behind it. So it's
sure.
Okay, it's all manual. Okay, no, that makes sense. And the event is like what you said, like 2 hours? Did you say?
Yeah, you spend a total of 36 minutes, believe it or not, getting ready for it. We just want to make sure everybody has everything ready to go, and they're going to have a good time, because it can get overwhelming from new people. And then you go into 7 rooms, then you last 12 minutes each, so it actually comes out to exactly 2 hours.
Nice. Okay. And I think that the 12-minute limit makes sense, right? Kind of, here's what you're supposed to do in this room, get the thing, move on to the next room. Because it is a convention game, right? If we were just doing it for fun and we screwed around in this room for 2-3 hours, the game has to just be giggling while we wasted time. But in an event like this, you want to keep it moving because you've got, 8,000 tickets you just sold. So we've got to punch people through, but yet have it be exciting and entertaining. So that makes sense to put the limit on it.
Yeah, I've played a few escape rooms, and they're a lot of fun. They're similar to ours. The one problem you get with like escape rooms is like we got on a bad team, and we were doing poorly, and we ended up like standing around looking at each other for like a half hour because there's no way we could have solved the immediate issue. What's nice about True Dungeon is you get 12 minutes. If you don't have it done, then okay, well, you take a little bit of damage. Now you get a next challenge. So there's not a whole lot of time to there's no downtime. If you can't get a puzzle, then that's cool. You get a little damage, move on to the next one, have some fun. It's not like you have to sit there and think about it for 20, 30 minutes. It's almost like torture. So this keeps it fun.
How big of teams do people normally bring in? Is this like if Sean and I were to show up at GameholeCon coming up in this November here, if we show up and is it he, me, and 6 of our friends? Is it 8-man teams? Is it 6 people teams? What are you looking at?
It's we provide them 10 tickets per slot, so it's 10 people to a team. Sometimes people will buy out extra tickets Like they'll want to say, well, I just want me and my 7 friends to play. So they'll buy all 10 tickets, and then they just turn the 2 tickets in and just say they want it. It's called ghosting, and they can basically just have an 8-player team if they want.
But otherwise, it's much like a regular convention RPG game, right? If I'm running Shadowrun and you and Sean happen to show up, unless you also bought a ticket for your buddy and or your girlfriend or whatever, no one else is there with you. You know, it is luck of the draw as to who you get. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, that can be great. It can be bad. I mean, I'm a lot of people.
If you've been to any gaming convention, you know it can be good. It can be bad.
Yeah. It's even more so in True Dungeon because it's so intense of an experience, right? You can imagine. I put a lot of stuff at cons. You know, you're kind of lollygagging. You know, it's fun. You're making jokes. But True Dungeon, you paid a lot of money to enjoy it, and you're really tense and everything. So if you find a good group, good people that you really click with, then it's amazing. But it could also go the other way around, where people unfortunately just meet people that they're not compatible with, and it's kind of a crapshoot, unfortunately.
That makes sense. Okay. So you said that like the chips and things, whatever you find and whatever you walk out with at the end, if I've got those chips in my hand, they're mine. And if I come back to True Dungeon the following year, I'm good to use those again.
Yeah, at the end of the adventure, we have this thing called Epilogue Room. You can do if you want, or you can just skip it. But basically, you can go up there and you can get we have what's called participation tokens, or like limited edition token. That's kind of a souvenir. The only way you can get one is to play that adventure. And if you survive, you can get a survivor button, and you can also get 3 draws out of the random treasure generator. Because if you remember in the old days, the most fun you could have at the end is after you killed all the monsters, and the DM was like, all right, it's time to roll up treasure. So this is similar to that. You randomly pull these tokens out of a treasure chest, and they could be a fairly common one, or it could be like an ultra uber rare one. It's just kind of the luck of the draw, kind of like rolling double 0 when you're doing treasure or something.
Yeah, that one time you ended up with the Axe of the Dwarvish Lords because your game master just rolled too high on the wrong ass table. Next thing you know, you're a god. Okay, I like it. So where do you hold the True Dungeon events? So we talked about GameholeCon and Gen Con as well. Do you hold them at other places? That was one of the pieces that, talking with friends of our show, Joe Swick has played a bunch of times. He said, used to only be a Gen Con. And I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. Where else does it go besides Gen Con and GameholeCon now?
Yeah, we had offers, of course, to go to other places for many years. But thought I'd keep it kind of... I had 2 smaller children that are starting to get older now, and they really don't like me that much anymore. So, they're teenagers, so...
Oh yeah, I got 5 kids, dude. I got everything from like early 23 down to 9.
Right.
So yeah, I got a half of them that could
enjoy that 9-year-old
exactly.
just a little longer.
She still thinks Dad's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so nice. Anyway, so we started going to other cons a couple years ago. We go to the season, we say, kind of starts at Gen Con. That's our big granddaddy. We get 3 full days with like 40 or 50 people, so we can set up an amazing looking event, which we can't really at other places. So we just don't have the time or the help. And then that's in August, usually the first weekend. Around the first half of November, we go to Madison, Wisconsin, go to GameholeCon, as you'd mentioned. Then we go a couple months later to PAX South in San Antonio in January. It's usually like mid-January. And then the next one isn't until June right now, which ends up at Origins Game Fair in Columbus.
Okay. So you had mentioned, previously, if we think, I'm assuming the previous storylines and other adventures you had were pretty much of your own design and so forth. And I heard you mention Patrick Rothfuss, the author. He's a Wisconsin boy out of Stevens Point, the King Killer Chronicles and such. And have you guys partnered up with WotC, Ed Greenwood, Forgotten Realms thing? Do you seek out partnerships like that, or is most of what your team and you create, is it mostly kind of homebrew, if you will? How do you guys go about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, we've never went out and tried to, team up with anybody. I'm a dungeon master just with 8,000 players instead of 8. But I still am just a DM that likes to do his own thing, But Pat had played for 3 or 4 times, and then he came up to me and said, "Hey, if you ever want to do anything, this would be cool. I'd love to have True Dungeon in my world." And being a big fan of his books, I was like, "Oh, I can't turn this down." So we talked, and I was a little worried because I'd never done anything like that before, where you had to partner up with somebody. It was always my own thing. I didn't have to compromise or anything, but it was a pleasure working with Pat. He'd spent way too much time with me on Skype going over ideas and monsters and tokens and everything. But we put together 2 really good adventures, I think. And we presented them at Gen Con, and we took them to Gamehole Con and PAX South. And next June, next month, we're going to have them at Origins for the final time in Columbus.
Very cool. Yeah, I was wondering how that would work because much like yourself, I kind of homebrew my stuff when I'm game mastering, and it's when you start to let somebody else into your playground and somebody else kind of owning / controlling IP. So that's cool. That is good because I'd heard Patrick was good with this type of thing. But I'm sure you knew the fear better than I would of wow, I'm going to get in here and this guy's going to be a dick. He's going to make me change stuff.
He was it scared me how nice he was. It made me oh crap. Yeah, because it was. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. It was crazy. He was telling me all these secrets, and I was like, and then he was like, "Have you read the short story about Bast?" It was published 5 years ago in this novella thing for charity, and I said, "Nope, sorry, I haven't." And he's like, "Well, it's kind of hard to find. Here, let me just send it to you." So then my email 2 minutes later shows up the original Word file. Okay, with the edits, the original Word file with the edits. It's got a different title because it was before. I guess he changed the title later. Anyway, that's how awesome he is. That he was he's just focused on making something really good and fun, and there was no contracts or anything. It was crazy. So yeah.
So once so you're gonna wrap up that Patrick Rothfuss stuff in next month in June. Yep. So what's new? What's coming? So when people are going to Gen Con this year and Gamehole and those 2 big ones coming up, what should they be looking out for? What are you bringing to the table now?
Sure. Yeah, we always have these multi-year story arcs just to keep it fun and interesting, and to help also plan for us. It's good to plan years in advance if we can. So we're coming up on the 3rd year of a story arc, which luckily was about them chasing this plane hopping Illithid type character all through a bunch of planes. So that's how we were able to work Pat's world in by chance, because he just popped into Terramint, I guess that's how it's pronounced. And they got to go and meet Bast and then Felurian when they went to the Fae. And now they're popping over to this Norse theme type outer plane. So the first adventure is in the astral plane traveling. They're chasing after this Mind Slayer, we call him. And then they have a couple more adventures inside this Norse type good aligned outer plane.
Do you actually have people that have been with you through? I'm assuming you get this right, where you've got the couple, the team, the man, the woman. She shows up and she's been through all of them. Somebody with this amazing history that makes the time to come. I'm assuming you've got a lot of repeat customers, right?
Yeah, I mean, the funny part is most of them end up volunteering because they have so much fun. So that's
a good problem to have, though, right? It's not like you don't need volunteers
Yeah, it's a really cool. They get what we're doing, and they really appreciate all the effort and work we put into it, and then they want to be a part of it because it's just pretty dang cool. And so they usually longtime players end up volunteering at least for one of these 4 conventions. So, we have a really good package. So it's like really nice. You get lots of nice freebie stuff and a stipend and everything.
Very cool. Are you sold out at Gen Con or no?
I checked like 6 hours ago, and we have exactly 2 tickets left.
As we're recording this on May 13th, I can guarantee you the last 2 will be gone by the time this drops. Wow.
Probably. Although people do return them later, but they'll get gobbled up. But,
yeah. How many tickets do you expect? So maybe this, I'm kind of pushing you to say something you're not ready to say yet, but with Gen Con being the big granddaddy of where this is, when you hit Gamehole Con, because that's the next big one, Sean and I being involved with Alex and stuff in this thing, how many do you run there? Is that another 8,000 people running through it? Are you at 4,000, 2,000? How are you doing there?
I think my guess for Gamehole Con, we had 2 adventures last year. We did the 2 Rothfuss adventures there.
Nice.
We're gonna have 3 this year at Gamehole Con. We're gonna advertise and try to get on social media to get gamers like in Milwaukee and Chicago to know that hey, they got a chance to do something really cool up here in Madison. Hopefully we can get the word out. But we should do probably 2,000 to 3,000. 3,000 would be a sellout. I don't think we will, but we should do 2,000 or so people up there. Yeah.
Very cool. Wow. I mean, 2,000 people. Sean and I remember he was at Gamehole Con 1. I started going at Gamehole Con 2. We hadn't even cracked the 2,000 person mark. So to think about the fact that we could have one event there that's drawing 2,000 to 3,000 people, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should say 2,000 tickets. Now, some people play, all 3 adventures. So I don't know how many unique people that'll be, but I think one of the reasons Alex really wanted us there is because he sees it as a really good draw, getting people to come, and so we're hoping to do that. We've learned a little bit about advertising on social media, so we found some things that seemed to work really well at PAX South last year. So we're going to try that, leverage it at Gamehole Con. We really just got to let people know. There's still a lot of people that have never heard of us, and that would, once they find out, they're like, I can't believe I didn't hear about this 15 years ago, but I'm coming now. And so we just got to reach those people that would really like to experience a highly immersive D&D adventure.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things you're saying, Jeff, that I really like is that because it's 15 years old, one of the things that I honestly initially thought was, the barrier to entry. I haven't been involved for the last 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. Shit, maybe this is, I won't know what's going on or whatever. But the way you describe it, where I come in and you've got that half-hour type of time frame, you're like, look, this is how it works, this is what this does. Then you've got a simulation to go through. Okay, you trained, you're ready. Okay, let's go. So Sean and I go in there as total noobs. We're still going to have a damn good time because we've been trained, we understand. And as long as we've got a good group to work with, which is a luck of draw for any gaming event, it's not like, you haven't been here for 5 years, just sit back there, rookie. You're not going to run into that here.
Yeah, we have, you hear stories from people that are like, I'm a newbie, and I had this great group of veterans that were really nice. They even loaned me a little bit of tokens and helped me out, and they were great. And because people want to share their love of True Dungeons, so they're really nice to new players. Occasionally they run into some bad folks, and I really hate to hear that because there's not much we can do about it, about policing people's actions, but we really do try to communicate to everybody to be as nice as they can to everybody, and usually it's usually the norm. If you can go on our forums, you can look around. We still have an old-fashioned forum that's really I think we're up to some of them have been moved off, but we're at 500,000 posts since we started. It's a really nice place. You go there and people are really nice to you. You ask questions, and it's and the community is very, very cool.
Hey Jeff, is there any age restrictions with going through True Dungeon?
Damn good question.
That is a really good question. Well, We ask that people be 13 or older. Of course, as with kids, there's no ID, so you really can't enforce that, right? And every kid's different. I've got an 11-year-old daughter that's like going on 18. And then there's some that are, everybody knows their own kids. So we try to stay around, it's like a PG-13 type, because there is some startle scares we try to do sometimes, that kind of stuff that I'd rather not give kids nightmares. So that's what we ask. But again, it's kind of hard to enforce. But if somebody obviously looks like they're 6, then we'll say something.
Awesome. So, Jeff, if we want to find out more, it's truedungeon.com, am I correct?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we truedungeon.com. You can just search. You can go to YouTube. There's a bunch of videos there as well, from stuff we've done over the years. And then you could also just jump on our forums. If you go to truedungeon.com and you have any questions or you want to have any, some kind of hints or whatever, people would love to communicate with you. There's plenty of the old vets that love playing with newbies, so you could even meet them there, and they'll you can run. They'll have like half their slots available for new folks, and that's a great way to learn the game. You can also volunteer, which is a really nice way to do it because you're going to get a free convention plus stipend for food and stuff, and you get to kind of meet the people, and that's half the charm, I think, of the True Dungeon experience for a lot of folks. Is just the amazing community we have. So those are the two biggies I would try.
Very cool. Sweet, man. I think we're good. Jeff, unless you've got any parting words of wisdom, I think we're good, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, we want to thank Jeff for being on the show and answering our questions. Hopefully, if you get the opportunity to go to one of the conventions that True Dungeon's being featured at, you will have the opportunity to adventure forward into the True Dungeon. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm positive there's a number of BSers out there who have listening to us, who either know people or have themselves been through True Dungeon. I know Joe Swick has, and I think a couple other people have. So if you're interested, apart from the forums and stuff that Jeff mentions at truedungeon.com and so on, feel free to poke people on social media in our gaming and BS community and Facebook or Google Plus, and maybe somebody out there has been out there and has got some extra tips and tricks for you. So it sounds pretty cool, man. Maybe I'll have to see if I can give it a go.
Yeah, and we'll have links to all the True Dungeon stuff that we can put out there, to include TD events, which is for Origins. They have their own website for you to actually register for True Dungeon rather than going through the Origins website.
Which
and then,
sucks.
Of course, yes. Excuse me. And then we'll also put links out there so that you can even volunteer. So sometimes you may be looking at becoming a participant, but they're always looking for volunteers to help them set up the 50,000 square feet of material and 5 semi-trucks worth of stuff.
It's insane.
It's nuts.
Just listen. It's so much. It's really cool, though. All right, cool.
All right. So
let's die roll, man.
Yeah, let's get into die roll. Die roll. That damn button.
And on episode 200, we'll have this cold, man. We'll have it cold.
Man.
All right, so in die rolls,
I'm new here.
We're all new here. Die roll space.
Just started yesterday. My boss didn't train me.
I've got one. The Medieval Combat World Championships in pictures. Link in the show notes. This is cool stuff. For me, watching, you see the stylized stuff in movies and so forth. And there's been videos out there about actual medieval combat, kind of how it works and so on. And for me, is watching it. We've had episodes on this where we've talked about how to make combat seem or feel real, or descriptions that we need often as game masters or even as players. To say, hey, I want to do this, sweeping the leg. Coming in with a punch with my gauntlet and then driving an axe or something. It's just seeing these types of images, looking at videos and stuff of this is really cool because it just adds a level of of detail and perspective, that we don't often get other than the highly stylized movie stuff. So this is kind of neat. I think it's pretty cool. So link in the show notes.
I came up empty-handed this week. I just did not have my ducks in a row, but I will comment. Comment on listeners. Shane Freeman, he puts out their D&D Castle in France. So if you happen to be in France or you're going to travel to France the weekend of July 1st through the 5th, 2018, which, if I'm not mistaken, is Bastille Days, if I'm not in Paris, I think. Might
Could be.
Holiday weekend. You can go and play D&D in a castle in France. It's going to have Satine Phoenix and Rudy Rutenberg there, as
Jeremy
well
Crawford.
as Jeremy Crawford. Yeah, it's so
Elsa Teague. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there you go. Second one, Kev Thulu, he comes through with a couple this week. He shares The Doll's House. We'll link in the show notes. It's a resource for Call of Cthulhu and Pulp Cthulhu fans. And you'll want to check that out. And then his second one, he also shares a Soviet spy map that spans the years of 1950 to 1990, where the Soviet Army created incredibly detailed maps of much of the world. And so if you're running Night's Black Agents or an espionage game, Cold Shadows, Spycraft, Top Secret, there's, tons of them out there.
Very cool.
Covert Ops.
That's Cold War era gold, man.
Cold War era gold. So, yeah, thanks for Shane and Cthulhu for sharing those. Much appreciated. So what are we talking about next week, Brett?
Kevin's Soviet spy map thing got you and I thinking. I think we're going to dig into Cold Shadows. Sean has mentioned the fact that he's got a copy of Cold Shadows. I'm going to run out. I'll just go over to drive-thru and buy myself a copy. But I want to talk about Cold Shadows. It's not a Powered by the Apocalypse game. It's a different style of game. And I don't want to spoil everything, but Sean's talked about it. He wants to run it. And even though we haven't run it yet, this isn't like a, hey, do you like it? Do you hate it? Or it's not a review per se. It's like, what do you think? How's it work? That based on what we know, we're just going to talk about it and see what we come up with. So cool stuff. We'll talk about Cold Shadows next time.
Maybe it'll light a fire under my rump.
Maybe it will.
That's what Brett's ulterior plan is.
Mostly.
Yeah.
I'm just over here with the kindling, kerosene, and a match.
Well, that's been another episode of Gaming and BS. Thanks for tuning in. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
The show has been... Oh, my God, I cannot talk tonight. This show has been brought to you with the help from the following BSers. Mark CMG Clover, Andy Hall, Corey Wynn, Graham Meinert, Joe Swick, Brett's biggest fan, Forrest Gary, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Jeppesen, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Palladian, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Wayne Humfleet, James Carpio, Not Caprio, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnson, Brandon Barnes, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, The Lost Sailor, Misdirected Mark Productions, Christopher Gray, Finolf, Mirko Froelich, Eileen Barnes, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Todd Crapper, Alexander Auerbach, Neil Benson, Chris Steele, Eric the Hoffman, Kyle Winter, Curtis Takahashi, Mark Tasaka, Larry Hout, Ray Otis, Ron Bishop, Craig Hubert, Xavier G, JV, John Hammersley, The Closet Gamer, John Steve, Jared Rasher, Mark Richmond, Thomas Hook, Blake Ryan, Chad Gleeman, Sky, Roger Braslett, Evan Harrison, Cass, Craig, Howard Bishop, Jim Fitzpatrick, Peter Skanes, The Knights of the Night Crew, Josh Wallace, Corey Welch, Eli Kurtz, Patiri Tertianen, Edwin Nagy, Bruce Cunnington, Aaron Coleman, Tim Short, Stefan Dragonspawn, Aonegus, Rolfer Guild, Gordon Cranford, Eric Salzwedo, Trezzy, George Sedgwick, Kev Lovecraft, Matt Cyberlick, Jack Neller, and Robert Nemeth. Or is it Nemeth? For ways to support the show, head over to gamingandbs.com/support-us. Thanks, BSers!
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.